Alright, today I just wanted to make some stuff from scratch, basically to show you guys how I make my loops and samples, and I don't really have any idea what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to start recording and kind of just talk about whatever I'm doing and how my mind is thinking and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So first of all, I'm thinking that I want to mess around with a plugin called Spire. It's a pretty new synth compared to a lot of the other ones. I mean, since new synths come out all the time, but I feel like this one is really has a lot of attention right now. It's pretty cool. Let's see if I can turn on my... So that's probably going to be kind of loud. I'm going to turn that down to make sure you guys can hear me. So that's just the default patch. It's not really, it's more of like a lead synth. So it sounds really good. A lot of people say that it's basically like a virus simulation, and if you are into the virus sound or you're into trance sounds, this can do those sounds. And I've actually gotten some pretty cool dubstep sounds out of it. If I go to my instruments and I type in Spire, I have a lot of instrument racks that I've made, different banks and stuff. That's a nice thing. Little pro tip is if you have a separate bank in Spire, instead of always going up to the menu and hitting load bank, you can just save it as an instrument rack in Ableton, and I just tag it. I just use these little brackets to denote tags, and I just type in lots of different words. Sometimes they're names of songs, sometimes they're descriptors, sometimes they're like different styles. Like some of them I have named like drops just because they're cool for drops. Here's some really cool dubstep patterns I made. These are like full-on patterns. Let me turn up the tempo here. Hold on. Alright, so anyway, this bass, let me play it with a beat so you can hear how it goes with a beat. Let's see. I think it's 4 bars long. And let's see. I have a lot of sounds and things. These are all my personal sample collection, and I think I have a dubstep beat somewhere. Here we go. This one. Alright, so there's a little preview of that, and let me show you a couple others I made, kind of in a similar vein. And here's the other one. That's a bit low. Let me... Alright, so this is the patch in Spire. Let me first turn off all the effects so you can hear just the clean sound of the filters and oscillators first. So it still sounds very dirty, and now let's just hear it with the filters all the way turned up. Maybe, yeah, I'll just turn the filters off. I'll just remember they're on perfecto, so off. And then check out the oscillator. So here's the first oscillator by itself. And then also we have an ARP pattern that is giving it the variation in notes value. So I'm just going to turn that off. And let's listen to the other oscillator by itself. Alright, so first thing you'll notice is that Oscillator 1 and Oscillator 2 are both the FM type. And this allows you to FM different wavetables. So on your first slot, you select a type of wave. Now with Classic, I'll come over to another oscillator. With Classic, you've basically got your classic wave types. So you can use these to basically go between, alright, so this is your pulse width. So you go between a saw wave and a square wave, or a pulse wave with variable pulse width. And that's basically it. But you can also select a wavetable, and then the wavetable will be mixed in, just like a regular mix, as if you had, as if each oscillator actually was two oscillators. And you know, you can change the phase, and looks like, yeah, this changes your pulse width of your wave, so that it looks like it actually mostly syncs with the wavetable. So, and these of course are your detune controls. You can detune by octaves or any note, and you can fine tune just like you'd find on any other subtractive oscillator, subtractive synthesizer. So what's interesting about the FM I found is that it's not just an FM oscillator that oscillates itself and then you mix in a wavetable. It's actually FMing the wavetable. So as if I turn off the modulation, which is coming from the stepper here, if you're familiar with Massive, the stepper it's just like the Performer. It's actually a little bit even more customizable than the Performer in Massive. So that's a huge, really cool thing, and it lets you get some really experimental sounds. So if we just, it looks like stepper 1 is what we have modulating. If we just go to our, sometimes you have to go through all these pages to find the right one, but you see I have it mapped to Oscillator 1 Control A. So let's just bring that all the way down. And let's make sure Oscillator 1 is playing and not Oscillator 2. I'll just bring these up and then use this to mute them. Alright, so cool. Now I can pretty much just move this on my own and you can hear the effect. So Oscillator 1 Control A. And we get this really nice visual representation of what the FM is doing to that wave. So it's giving, it's quite a cool texture there. And I'm layering it with this other oscillator. So basically, this is more giving you a low-mid sweep right there. So when I turn this up, it follows the stepper. And so, as you can see in Spire, unlike Silent 1, you've got a whole matrix of modulations, and you can modulate just many things. And each modulation source has up to 4 targets, and I believe that you can do even more than that just by adding more, using up more slots. But just like a Massive patch that you might find, I wanted a lot of different parameters to be modulated by the same pattern to get a very emphasized sound. So I modulated the cutoff of a filter as well by the stepper 1 and Oscillator 2 Control A. Now Oscillator 2, now let's do the same thing with Oscillator 2. We'll listen to it. We'll listen to modulation, turn off the modulation. It just sounds like a stable wave. Now Control A, this is where the magic happens. So even very small movements can generate really cool sounds. In fact, this sound right here, I just love that, right? That FM, that squelchy sound right there. So I could actually maybe even turn this modulation smaller, and then we'll see. That's the wrong one. This one. So let's mix that in with Oscillator 1. And then the fun really comes from just messing around with these and finding the right amount for your modulations. And then, of course, we've got distortion and everything, so I think turning the filters back on, this actually uses a high-pass filter, this patch, and it definitely gives a different sound than a low-pass filter. A lot of people just use low-pass filters for these kind of basses, but like the high-pass filter sounds very, very squelchy, and if you're layering it with a sub anyway, you can definitely get away with high-passing out some of those lows because you're really trying to generate interest in the mids. That's kind of the purpose of these dubstep basses, is to have really interesting mids and highs, and you're getting a lot of interesting highs. You're getting a lot of movement in the highs because of the FM changes. Normally, if you had a stable wave and you modulated a high-pass filter, there wouldn't really be that much going on in the highs. There'd be a lot going on in the mids because you've got the resonance crossing on the filter all through your mids. But on your highs, it wouldn't be too much. That's why people use low-pass filters. But since you've already got this FM oscillator, you get very, very squelchy sounds, and the filters, they can really add to that. So, because as it cuts out the lows and even the low mids, your focus of your attention goes to the highs where a lot of movement is happening. So it's just a really cool effect. Let me turn on the shaper so we can hear how the distortion affects that. Sounds just absolutely evil. So I've engaged a phaser here, which creates a stereo width effect. It's fairly subtle, but if you listen for the stereo effect, you'll notice it. Chorus is not engaged. Delay is not engaged. You wouldn't really use delay on a sound like this because it would just sound muddy. And then I have a slight reverb. I put reverb pretty much on everything, and at least in a very subtle amount, because even if you want your sound to sound very dry, just that little tiny, like 10 to 20% of reverb will give it a sense of space, and you can really notice it when the sound is not sounding. Basically, like if you have a phrase and then it ends, having that little extra reverb, and the compressor can emphasize that, can give you like a great, almost like a breathing effect. And if you don't want it, you can always turn it off or cut it out once you convert it to audio, which I do a lot when I am mixing down. So I've talked about the filters here. Once again, like I used the Perfecto filter and a peak, and that basically just emphasizes a certain frequency. It doesn't cut out any frequencies, it only boosts, and I just kind of played with these. In fact, It looks to me like there isn't any modulation on this, which means it's acting more like an EQ boost. So that's pretty much it for the actual sounds. Now we can talk about how modulation works. So we've got this stepper 1. We've already seen that this is selected, stepper 1 is selected and it's being routed to these, but we haven't actually looked at stepper 1. Well, stepper 1 is right here. Now I'm going to kind of mess around with it and show you how it works. It's very intuitive. If you've ever used Massive and you know, are familiar with the Performer, retrigger that basically, see how when I hit the key, this little playhead here, it doesn't go back to the beginning. So if you're making certain moving sounds, you might want that. But for this type of sound, you probably want it to retrigger, and also loop is engaged so that it loops, and it looks like this mode is set to sync, which will allow it to sync with the beat. And the end, start and end, that's just how far this playhead moves before it loops. So you can make quite long, I think it goes up to 16 positions. So you can get very long sequences in here. I just went for a short sequence, 4-bar sequence, but pretty much you can do whatever you want. It allows you to do triplets. So this is a double and then a triplet and then a whole note or a whole beat, I guess, in this case. Of course, it depends on your time. I could double this time. If I wanted that effect. Or I could have it, you know, 1/2 is the original, I'll go to 1/1. So I just went with this because, you know, I just played with it until I found the right one. And what's really cool about this also is that you get a very, very customized wave by moving these this XY pad around. It'll actually change the curve of this thing so that you can get very sharp yeah, very, very cool. Let's see what else. Oh yes, the Arpeggiator. Arpeggiator is like a real good arpeggiator. It's basically set in so it's set to go up to 12. Hold on a sec. So it goes up an octave, and then this little arrow, as you can hear, as it moves to the next note, it's a bend rather than a just the change of the note. So and then the actual time it takes to bend between the notes is right here, your glide. So you can pretty much program an entire drop right in this synth without, I have no external effects on here or anything like that, and it's just one MIDI note that I'm triggering while, you know, just with my computer keyboard here. I guess that's pretty much it for this sound. All the other sounds are basically that I showed are basically the same idea behind them. I just tried different wave shapes down here, and I tried different Robo, by the way, sounds really cool. I tried different filters, and that's more or less it. I mean, I don't know if there's tons and tons of depth to doing this type of heavy basses, like the same way that there is in Massive, because the number of wavetables is it's definitely not as many, and they're more based on more traditional. Many of them are based on traditional sounds, whereas massives are not at all. They're all over the place, and you know, there's different types of FM that could be applied to each oscillator via bend plus and bend minus, and so I definitely don't see tons and tons of possibilities in here, but it does have some pretty cool stuff. Like, it has a talking mode for the phaser, which could be used to success, and obviously any external processing you want to do, EQ modulation, that's very possible. Actually, you can do EQ modulation right in the synth by selecting, oh, maybe you can't, source one. And that's actually interesting, as an aside real quick, is that you can select an oscillator as a modulator, which means that's actually very cool. I hadn't really thought about that before, but now that I think of it, that means you can actually FM filters by oscillators, which can create some pretty cool effects. And yeah, you can. It looks like you can FM. Yeah, because if you assign one oscillator to another oscillator's pitch, then that's actually FM. So there could be, you know, I haven't explored it yet. There could be a lot of possibilities, but it's, if you're trying to do FM sounds, you may as well just use like a straight up FM synth rather than trying to get Spire to do it, because, you know, Spire sounds great, but it seems kind of clunky to try to do like real crazy FM stuff. Anyway, I was just trying to see if we could do, I'm pretty sure you can modulate the EQ. Yeah, here we go. So you could do EQ modulation and stuff right in here as well if you wanted to get some weird like talky vowel-y sounds, as well as the vowel filters, vowel phaser I should say. So that's about it. I mean, that's pretty much how far I've gotten as far as trying to program Squelchy dubstep-y basses in Spire. And it was kind of a challenge to see if I could do it, because I hadn't really done it before in this synth, and I had never seen any videos of anybody that has done it. So hopefully you guys, if you have this synth already and you make that kind of music that you really want those Squelchy basses, like it's pretty easy. It's pretty much FM, select a wave, wavetail mix, mess around with this, modulate this, and you know, detune some stuff and distort it, and add some filters to sync along with your modulation, and you just draw your little modulation in here, and you're pretty much good to go. That does probably sound like a lot of stuff, but like I said, if you're familiar with Massive at all and you watch Massive tutorials, it's the way modulation works in the stepper is just like the performer, and it actually is kind of like the stepper in Massive too, because you can just have these be, like straight waves. Maybe you can't. I don't know. Well, you know, you just go play with it, and you will see. So that pretty much just wraps it up. Oh, the other thing that's really cool, I guess I'll just mention this, is that you can actually move these points. So yeah, this is how you would get more of like an envelope. So if I turn this on X1, move this to or I can just hit this to reset it. Oh, that's how you would do it. It's this H button. Makes it a hard line. And you just copy that, paste it, and move your points. And then you've got straight lines. And in Massive's Performer, you can't actually change where it ends. They all end at 0. So you can't like draw this to start here and end here. That's one thing that I like that they added. Alright, so that's it. Check out my videos. Oh, and I have a bunch of announcements, I guess. One announcement is I'm being interviewed on EDM Giant, which is a podcast where they talk to producers, and I talked to Eddie Yoon yesterday, and he's a cool guy, and he's going to put out the episode in a couple weeks. And to coincide with that, I am releasing a sample pack of sounds that basically I made this weekend, and I might do a video on that, but even if I don't, I will put up the sounds on my YouTube channel, and I'll put them up on my website, and I'll put them up on my Facebook, and all the places, and my Twitter, and all the places you can find me. And also, if you check out that episode, you'll be able to find links in the show notes to all that as well. And I think that the theme of the pack so far is glitch hop. I have a bunch of 110 BPM loops. They're all basses and sounds, melodies and leads and stuff like that, and chords. And yeah, so you guys can have that for free, use it in your productions. And if you guys have any questions about anything, I'm real accessible. You can just leave a comment on this YouTube vid, or you can email me, nukage@gmail.com. I do Ableton one-on-one tutoring. I'm in New York City, so if you're in the area, hit me up. And also, I'd like to just plug our group. We have a EDM producers meetup group on meetup.com, and you can go there and search us, and you can come hang out with me and our group. So yeah, we meet up like usually once a week, or sometimes a couple times a month. So, and we have events, stuff like that. So definitely check that out if you're in the area. I hope you enjoyed this this Dubstep Spire tutorial / overview, and have a good day.